Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And of course, the odds were put out before them, and that'd be the Colts and the Titans before the season started. Everyone had high hopes. Of course, week one happened, and some of those hopes are definitely dashed. And one person that had the keen eye on the betting odds for title contention for the Colts and the Titans is my next guest, Mr. Trey Wingo. What's going on?
Hey, Mike, how are you? Good to be with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on. And of course, everyone knows you a lot from ESPN.
Really?
So I'm gonna ask, what was one thing that you're up to now, or some things you're up to now that people may not be aware of?
Well, that's a kind of a long answer for you, so I'll try and keep it as short as possible. I'm the Chief Trends Officer and Brand Ambassador for Caesar Sportsbook, which is a fancy way of saying they want me to talk about football. I do a show every Monday on Spotify Live with my good friend Mark Schlereth, called Upon Further Review, who I worked with for 13 years at ESPN. We break down football every day of the year or every week of the year, Monday, 6 o'clock Eastern. I write for Facebook and something called treywingo.bulletin.com. I work for the PGA Tour, calling events for the PGA Tour. I work for Pro Football Network as their chief football analyst, and I do a show every week called More Than Football and Inside the NFL with them. I also work for the 33rd Team, which is basically a conglomeration of former players, coaches, executives in the NFL. And I do 2 shows a week for them, recapping the Sunday night game as well as the Monday night game. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed. There might be a couple of other things in there, but yeah, we're having a good time and we're keeping busy.
Definitely, definitely. People joke with me about me doing a whole bunch of things, but I think you've got me beat.
You try. I'm just trying to keep up, Mike. I'm just trying to keep up.
Well, I will tell you that one team that's definitely trying to keep up and keep ahead of all the publicity they're getting in the wrong way would be the Tennessee Titans at this point, because, of course, everyone had them beating the New York Giants. And, of course, with being in Nashville, and I've lived in Nashville my entire life, essentially. So basically with the Titans, the thing is, when they're expected to win games, they usually either win them close or lose them. And when they're not expected to win, they usually win those games. So going into this game, I already had that feeling. I was like, I don't know if they're going to win this game. And sure enough,
Well, I mean that I get it, but like you're up 13 on a bad Giants team, beat them, like sweep the leg, Danny, finish them. And I want to be clear, I'm a big believer in Mike Vrabel and a big believer in John Robinson, the general manager. Like I think when it's all said and done, Mike Vrabel is going to be the Belichick disciple, for lack of a better term, that has the best coaching career, even though he never was a coach for Bill Belichick, but he played under Bill Belichick all those years in New England. So I'm a huge believer in Mike Vrabel. This was a terrible loss. You're up 13-0 on a Giants team that is extremely limited, for lack of a better term. You have to finish it. There are some questionable things, a 3rd and 1 where they went double tight end reverse when you have Derrick Henry there back and ready to go after missing over half of last season before coming back in the postseason. That was, I think, a call that they would like to have over. They muff a punt, which was also a big part of that game. But you also had it won when Daniel Jones threw a 4th quarter interception in the red zone, in the end zone. Like, finish it. They just didn't finish the game. And I think that's the thing that is going to be gnawing at them until they get back on the field next week.
definitely will be. And by next week they do have the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, which is
Yeah,
a
good luck with
tough
that.
challenge.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. The best way I can sort of make Tennessee people feel bad about it is they're a 10-point dog right now going into that game on Caesar Sports. And this was despite the fact that they beat the Buffalo Bills last year as a 6-point underdog. And when Mike Vrabel led teams are at least a 6-point underdog, they're 6-2 straight up. So they know how to play the underdog card very well. But this is a really, really good Bills team they're going to face on Monday night that's had the benefit of a few extra days rest because they started in that Thursday night opener and absolutely destroyed the Super Bowl champion Rams. And people need to understand how well they played in that game. First of all, they didn't punt. And going back to their 4 last regular season games, they haven't punted in 3. The Bills haven't in 3 of their last 4 regular season games. The NFL's been tracking punts since 1939. That had never happened before. Okay, so we're talking about peak efficiency on this Bills offense and a defense that was number 1 overall last year in total defense, scoring defense, passing defense, and on third down. And they added Von Miller, who had 2 sacks and 3 tackles for losses in his debut on Thursday night. So, yeah, the Titans can do it, but by God, it's going to be brutally difficult.
Definitely. And they're on the road this time, as opposed to them hosting the Bills the last 2 times.
Correct.
So as far as their odds, I don't know what their odds were before they lost this game.
Better than they are now. Better than they are now. Like right now, the Colts remain a slight favorite to win the division, even though they tied with the Texans at -140. Titans are +225. Jags are +650, and the Texans are way back in the distance.
Yes. I kind of figured the Texans wouldn't be close to everybody, but hey, you kind of put it numbers-wise for me.
Yeah.
Now, of course, going forward with the odds that they have, of course, if they win this game in Buffalo, that would definitely boost their odds a little bit more.
A lot. It would boost their odds a lot. I mean, the Bills are the prohibitive favorite at Caesars Sportsbook to win the whole thing. No one has shorter odds than the Bills at this point.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see what happens. But, of course, like I mentioned, they always seem to win the games that no one expects them to win. And you did say with the 6-2 against the spread straight up, correct?
Yeah, when they're getting 6 points or more.
Got you. Now, as far as the other team in this division that is people are kind of going back and forth with winning the title, they didn't necessarily have a great game either. They were down as much as 20-3 to the Texans. Of course, the Texans became the Texans and let them back in the game. But, of course, neither one of them could finish off each other in overtime, and they tied 20-20, which it was just – watching the game, it just looked like the offense was kind of blah. It looked like they couldn't take advantage of the red zone opportunities that the Texans gave them. It just – I don't know what to say about the Colts right now and their odds. I don't – some people had them as a playoff contender or a potential dark horse Super Bowl contender, and I don't know what to say about that at this point.
Well, listen, I think we can overreact very strongly week 1, right? Everybody does it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It was a bad game for the Colts, like it was a bad game for the Titans. There's no question. But I think they're going to be fine. I do think they're the best team in the division. I mean, Matt Ryan is, to me, an upgrade over Carson Wentz and whomever Frank Reich has had as a starting quarterback, as a head coach. He's had 5 different starting quarterbacks in his 5 different seasons as a head coach. I think Matt Ryan at this point, outside of Andrew Luck, has been the best. But you mentioned red zone opportunities. One play that drove me crazy, like I did not understand it on Sunday, was that the Colts at one point, I think they were only down 3-0 at this point, or maybe 7-3, whatever. It was early in the game, and it was a 4th and goal from like the 3, and they went for it. And they took Matt Ryan off the field and put Naheem Hines in the shotgun. It was a direct snap to him, and the Texans sniffed it out and just stuffed it for no gain. What are you doing? Like, you made this huge offseason trade to get Matt Ryan, who is a former NFL MVP, who's thrown for over 50,000 yards in his career. Why are you doing a direct snap to Naheem Hines? Like, that play call was one of the most perplexing of the entire day for me, much in the same way the double tight end reverse was for Tennessee. Like, that's why you brought him over here, man. Like, that's why you have Matt Ryan. You pay quarterbacks for 3 reasons, if we're being honest about it: to win on third down, to win in 2-minute situations, and to win in the red zone. Why are you taking him off the field? It was one of the worst coaching decisions of the entire week 1.
Definitely. I have to agree. Now, I will tell you this. The Titans did kind of try to one-up them on third down. They did have Derrick Henry in the wildcat position, and I'm like, okay, what are we doing here?
But I'm okay with that because it's Derrick Henry. Like, he's a human refrigerator with arms and legs. This is Naheem Hines. Oh, I like Naheem Hines. Good change of pace player. very shifty, very speedy, but he's not getting that first down. I mean, at least with Derrick Henry, you have receipts of what Derrick Henry can do in that situation.
That's true. That's true. And like in the touring the AFC South inbox, Corey Jackson Sr., don't reinvent the wheel. Sheesh. Very well put.
There it is.
All right. Now, of course, with both of these teams, they do have odds. Now, how much would you say the odds kind of affected the Colts in this one, would you say?
In terms of after the win?
After the
tie, rather?
Yes.
Well, as I said, they're still the favorite to win the division. I think they had, a minus 140? Yeah, they're still a slight at minus 140, and the Titans are plus 225. So they're still the favorites to win the division. But if they struggle again in their next outing, those odds may shift. Like, the odds are very malleable, man, right? Like, depending on results, the odds change dramatically. So, the Cowboys were looking pretty good before week 1 on the odds, and then they were terrible. They were the only team. The only team. Think about this for a second. The Dallas Cowboys were the only team week 1 not to score a touchdown. Not the Chicago Bears, not the Houston Texans, not the Atlanta Falcons. It was the Dallas bleeping Cowboys that were the only team in the NFL to not score a touchdown in week 1. That is brutal.
Very much, very much. Throw the New York Jets in there as well.
And they've lost 13 straight games in September, tying the Rams from 2007 to 2010 for the longest September losing streak. Even they scored a touchdown. Right.
And they had Joe Flacco at quarterback, by the way. Yeah. All right. Now, of course, for those that aren't aware, can you kind of break down a little bit how betting odds kind of work a little bit, if you don't mind?
Well, I will, but that's not my forte. I don't set the odds. I want to be clear about that. Mm-hmm. There are people much smarter than me in Las Vegas that do that. What I do is interpret the data, what I've done every year. I've worked ESPN for NFL Live, NFL Primetime, SportsCenter, Golic, and Wingo. Like, for example, the Chiefs were 4.5-point favorites on the road Sunday. Well, why are they favorites on the road against an Arizona team that made the playoffs? Well, because Patrick Mahomes is a golden god, okay? The Chiefs went into that game having won 7 straight week 1 wins. They've now won 8 straight week 1 wins, longest streak in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes threw for 5 touchdown passes. He is the only player in NFL history to throw at least 3 touchdown passes and no interceptions over 5 straight season openers. He was also the only quarterback to ever do it for 4 straight season openers. The Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes as their starter, went into that game 6-0 straight up against NFC teams when they played them on the road. They're now 7-0 playing NFC teams on the road with Patrick Mahomes under center. So I don't set the odds. The odds are set by people that are much smarter than me in terms of how to do this. What I do is tell you why the odds are the way they are. Like, for example, all those things I just gave you. That's why the Chiefs were favored at 4.5. I think it went up to 6 by game day over the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow. I mean, definitely, if you're not listening to Mr. Trey Wingo about these odds and all the things that he has out there, you're definitely missing out. Now, of course, I want to ask, go back to the ESPN days just for a moment. Mm-hmm. I want to ask, what is some of the more memorable things that you had, memorable times that you had there that you can kind of think of off the top of your head?
I had like a bucket ton. You know what I mean? There were so many things that were great. I mean, a lot of the folks that I worked with at ESPN are, like, I always say there's 3 kinds of people you work with, right? There's your coworkers. Well, you're just there. You share same space. You work for the same company. They're your friends. And then there are your boys. And all my friends that were my boys at ESPN still remain my boys, whether it's Mark Schlereth, whom I work with, as I said, in a bunch of different ways now, whether it's Ryan Clark or Herm Edwards or Damian Woody or Ron Jaworski or Tim Hasselbeck or Jeff Saturday or Merrill Hodge. All those guys are still my friends. We still hang out. They're still my boys. We do all that. That was the thing that meant the most to me. Teddy Bruschi, my God, I worked with Teddy forever. Those are the things that I remember more than the actual moments. I mean, covering 18 Super Bowls was great, and covering the Olympics was great, and covering NBA championships was great. Covering the U.S. Open and the British Open and Wimbledon and the U.S. Open tennis. Those were all wonderful things to go to, and I enjoyed every one of them. But it's always the people. it's always the people that sort of get things going. And that was the impetus for the podcast that we do, Half Forgotten History podcast. All the stories that I heard that never made it onto the air, one way or the other, because of time constraints, or it didn't really fit in with what we were doing. But the stories that I'd heard in the green room, or the stories that I'd heard out to dinner at a Super Bowl or at a Pro Bowl or a playoff game, like those stories are what make things more interesting. And that's the whole point of the Half Forgotten History podcast. We had Alan Robinson last week. We had Matt Ryan, week 1 of this year, season 8 of the pod. It's called Half Forgotten History. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts, or also it's on my YouTube page, Trey Wingo Presents. We're dropping Jake Plummer this week, Jake the Snake.
Wow. Haven't heard that name in a long time.
He's now a mushroom salesman. And how he got to being a organic mushroom salesman, it's a great story. So check that out. That'll be dropping on Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts, or you can check it out because it's a video podcast as well as an audio podcast on my YouTube page, Trey Wingo Presents.
Wow. You are definitely a man of many talents and doing a lot of different things. And as you mentioned throughout the show, a few different things that you're working on. Do you have anything else you want to tell those that are tuning in that you're working on that they need to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, like it's all good. We got a couple of things that may be happening, but the most important thing is, to enjoy what you do and enjoy who you do it with, and that's the luxury that I find myself having right now. Like I love football. Like it's my favorite thing, and specifically the NFL. This is my favorite time of the year. If I'm not doing this, I love covering golf, and I've been very fortunate to cover a lot of great events. So things are good, man. Like everyone should have my problems, I guess, is the easiest way to say it.
Got you. Now, of course, the Colts play the Jaguars this weekend, another divisional battle.
They better win.
Yeah, definitely. And then the Titans face the Bills on Monday night for the world to see. So that ought to be interesting as well. Trey Wingo, thank you for stopping through, touring the AFC South, giving a nice education on a few different things going on, and a lot of facts. A lot of facts for people to know.
Anytime you need me, let me know.
Yes, sir. And if you would, can you give everyone where they can find you on social media?
Sure. My Twitter is @Wingos with a Z, @WINGOZ. Instagram is @Trey.Wingo. TikTok, started the TikTok thing. I think that's Trey Wingo 63, because literally Trey Wingo 1 through 62 were taken. So Trey Wingo 63 on that. And my Facebook page is just Trey Wingo. All my stuff that I write for Bulletin and a lot of stuff I put up there is also available on my Facebook page.
All right. Well, thank you for coming through, and thank everyone for tuning in and touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.